Today we'll walk through creating a lesson on Learn 2.0. Let's get started. Once you're logged in and on the My Learn page, select the Create tab. Find the box labeled 5e Lesson, and at the bottom of the box select Create 5e Lesson. Let's go over the different tabs we'll use when creating a lesson, from right to left. The Conversation tab is where you can collaborate with others to talk over and give feedback on content that's still being written. The History tab tells you when content was created, and when changes were made over time. The Meta tab is all about metadata. This is where you enable all the powerful search functionality of filters, and also where you tell the end user about the content you're writing and who it's meant for. Just like we've been doing, let's make our lesson today for a 9th grade science class by clicking directly on the text 9th grade, and then directly on the text science. That will add those filters so that other users can find your lesson when they search for lessons that match its subject and grade. A bit farther down, we can select educational standards we want to apply to our lesson by selecting those standards from drop-down menus. Let's say we want the lesson to adhere to Oklahoma standards, and we want it to be science standards for, let's say, biology. When we select that last filter, you get a huge list of standards to choose from, but that's what the search bar is there for. For this example, the standard I want to write a lesson for is about the carbon cycle. If I type in carbon cycle into the search bar, I only get standards with that specific text in them. If you know the standard you want to meet, you can easily narrow down the field to a few specific standards you want to choose from. The next metadata field down the page is time. That's simply a ballpark estimate of how long you think it will take to teach the lesson, either in hours and minutes or class periods. Maybe we intend our lesson to be quick and simple, and it'll only take a single class period to teach, so we'll just enter 1 hour in the time frame field and 1 period in the duration field. Content Refresh tells users how often we should go back and review this content for relevance and accuracy. Let's say that for our example, we need to go back once a year to look at the lesson. We'll select the drop-down menu and then select After 1 year. Collaborators is where you can invite other Learn users to work on your content. Type their email address into the field, and if they have a Learn account, they'll be able to work on the lesson or content with you. For this lesson, we don't have a peer collaborator, so we'll leave it blank. External authors is a place to give credit to contributors that don't have a Learn account. Just enter their name into the field and add them, and their names will show up in the Learn lesson. Lastly, you can assign your content to an organization to give them permission to edit and publish the document. This also grants permission to feature the lesson on the organization's website. We'll let the K20 Center have access to this lesson by selecting the drop-down menu and selecting K20 Center. Whew! Now that we've got all our metadata sorted out, the Content tab at the top of the page is where we'll write the meat of our lesson. Most of the fields in the Content section tell a user something about the lesson. There's room for attachments used in your lesson, a summary and an essential question, and a snapshot section with room for a quick description of how each phase of your lesson should work. The Cover Image section at the top of the page is where you can attach an image that describes your lesson. As an example, think back to when we bookmarked lessons in another video. Those pictures are the cover images for those lessons. There's room for a standard 5e lesson and a specific section for resources, but you can also add sections to the lesson, letting you modify the 5e structure for a little more flexibility in how you design. On the right side of each text section, there are arrow and trash icons. The arrows let you move an entire section up or down in the lesson, letting you reorganize quickly. Selecting the trash icon will delete an entire section if you don't need it, or if you accidentally added one too many. Be careful though. As of the recording of this video, there is no warning dialog for deleting a section. To save your work, click the Save button in the top left-hand corner of the page. Learn has an automatic save function, but it's best to save your work often manually as well. We can preview the lesson by clicking the Preview button. This is how end users will experience the lesson, so it can be useful to view it through their eyes. Let's go ahead and close this Preview tab in our browser. Going back to lesson creation, selecting the Exit button takes us back to the My Learn page. Here, you'll see a tab called My Resources. This is where you can see the content you've created or begun creating. For each entry or piece of content you've made, there will be 4 buttons you can click. Selecting Edit takes us back to lesson creation. Copy creates a duplicate of the lesson. Submit for publication sends it to copy editors, and Archive removes the lesson from being accessible on your page. Once you've finished working on your lesson and adding content, save it one more time, and we're done.